For most of modern American history, the story was simple. If you wanted opportunity, you went to the big cities: New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, San Francisco, Seattle. These places represented ambition, careers, culture, and the future. Small cities, on the other hand, were often seen as quiet, slow, and left behind. People left them for bigger markets, bigger salaries, and bigger dreams. But something unexpected is happening now. Small cities are booming again. Across the United States, mid-sized and smaller cities are suddenly attracting new residents, new businesses, new investment, and new energy. Places that were once overlooked are now growing faster than some of the biggest urban centers in the country. And this shift is not random. It's the result of deep economic changes, cultural shifts, and technological revolutions that are reshaping where Americans choose to live and work. To understand why small cities are booming again, you have to understand what changed in the first place. For decades, big cities dominated because they controlled access to opportunity. High-paying jobs were concentrated in corporate headquarters, financial districts, media centers, and industrial hubs. If you wanted to build a career, you had to be physically present where the work happened. But that system is breaking down. Technology changed everything. The internet, cloud computing, digital communication, and remote work tools slowly weakened the connection between geography and opportunity. And then the pandemic accelerated that change overnight. Millions of workers discovered something revolutionary. They didn't actually need to live in expensive big cities to keep their jobs. Once that realization spread, everything started to shift. People began asking a simple question. If I can work from anywhere, why am I paying so much to live here? That question is at the center of the small city boom. One of the biggest drivers is affordability. Big cities have become extremely expensive. Rent in places like New York, San Francisco, and Los Angeles can consume a massive portion of income. Home ownership feels out of reach for many young workers. Even middle-class salaries often struggle to keep up with rising housing costs, taxes, and daily expenses. Small cities offer a completely different equation. In many mid-sized cities, people can still afford larger homes, shorter commutes, and a higher quality of life for significantly less money. A monthly rent that barely covers a studio apartment in a major city might cover a full home in a smaller metro area. That difference changes everything. It allows people to save money, reduce stress, and build stability in a way that feels increasingly impossible in expensive urban centers. But affordability alone does not explain the entire trend. Quality of life is just as important. Small cities often offer something big cities struggle with: balance. Less traffic, less noise, less overcrowding, more space, more nature, more predictable daily life. For many people, especially younger families, that balance has become more valuable than access to nightlife or proximity to corporate headquarters. A generation ago, success was defined by being in the center of everything. Today's success is increasingly defined by control over your time, and small cities offer that control. Remote work is another major force behind this shift. When millions of jobs moved online, location stopped being a requirement for many careers. Software engineers, marketers, designers, analysts, consultants, and entrepreneurs suddenly had freedom to choose where they lived. And many of them chose small cities. Places like Boise, Idaho, Greenville, South Carolina, Madison, Wisconsin, Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Des Moines, Iowa began attracting remote workers from across the country. These cities offer something rare in today's economy: affordability combined with opportunity. They may not have the same corporate density as major hubs, but they often have growing job markets, expanding infrastructure, and strong local economies. And for remote workers, that's enough. In fact, for many, it's ideal, because they can keep high-paying remote jobs while living in places where their money goes further. But there's another powerful reason small cities are growing: saturation in big cities. Major metropolitan areas have reached a point where growth has created its own problems. Housing shortages, traffic congestion, high taxes, overcrowded infrastructure, long commutes, rising crime concerns in some areas, and increasing competition for every opportunity. At a certain point, the advantages of big cities begin to diminish, and people start looking for alternatives. Small cities become that alternative. They offer many of the same opportunities on a smaller scale, without the extreme costs and pressures of major urban centers. Another key factor is business migration. Companies are no longer locked into big city headquarters the way they used to be. Many businesses are relocating operations, offices, and distribution centers to smaller cities where costs are lower and talent is still available. Manufacturing plants, tech campuses, logistics hubs, and corporate offices are spreading out across the country instead of concentrating in a few expensive coastal regions. And when businesses move, people follow. Jobs create population growth. Population growth creates demand for housing, services, and infrastructure. That demand attracts more businesses, and the cycle continues. Small cities are benefiting directly from this chain reaction. But something deeper is happening too. Cultural perception is changing. For a long time, small cities were seen as less exciting or less ambitious. Young professionals felt pressure to move to big cities to prove they were successful. But that mindset is fading. Today, ambition is no longer defined by geography. It's defined by lifestyle, flexibility, and financial independence. Social media has played a major role in this shift. People now see others living fulfilling lives in smaller cities, working remotely, traveling more, and enjoying lower stress lifestyles. The idea that success requires living in a major city is no longer universally accepted. In fact, for many young Americans, it feels outdated. Education and healthcare systems are also helping small cities grow. Many mid-sized cities have strong universities, research centers, and hospital systems that anchor local economies. These institutions attract students, professionals, and investment that fuel long-term growth. Over time, these cities become more self-sustaining economic ecosystems, rather than dependent satellite communities. Another factor is infrastructure development. As populations shift, governments and private companies invest in expanding roads, airports, broadband internet, and public services in smaller cities. High-speed internet in particular has been a game changer. It allows remote workers, entrepreneurs, and companies to operate from almost anywhere with reliable connectivity. That levels the playing field between big cities and small cities more than ever before. But this boom is not without challenges. Rapid growth in small cities can create new problems very quickly. Housing prices begin to rise, traffic increases, local infrastructure becomes strained, and the very affordability that attracted people in the first place can start to disappear. We've already seen this happen in cities like Austin and Nashville, which started as affordable alternatives, but have experienced significant price increases due to rapid population growth. Small cities face a delicate balance. They want growth, but not too much too fast. They want investment, but not displacement. They want opportunity, but not overcrowding. If they grow wisely, they can become the next generation of major American hubs. If they grow too quickly, they risk becoming the very cities people are trying to escape. Another important factor shaping this trend is demographics. Younger generations are prioritizing different things than previous generations. Instead of focusing solely on career prestige, many now value flexibility, mental health, outdoor access, and financial stability. Small cities often align better with those priorities. They offer shorter commutes, more affordable housing, and closer access to nature and community. For families, this is especially important. Raising children in smaller cities often feels more manageable and less stressful than in dense metropolitan environments. Safety, schools, space, and cost of living all play major roles in that decision. And as more families make that choice, small cities continue to grow. There is also a psychological shift happening in how people view success. For decades, success was tied to being in the biggest, busiest places. Now, success is increasingly tied to freedom. Freedom from debt, freedom from stress, freedom from long commutes, freedom to live where you want. Small cities represent that freedom for millions of Americans. They are no longer seen as second choices, they are becoming intentional choices. Looking forward, this trend is likely to continue. As remote work expands, as housing costs remain high in major cities, and as companies decentralize, small cities may play an even larger role in the American economy. Some may eventually grow into major metropolitan centers themselves. Others may remain mid-sized but highly livable hubs of opportunity. Either way, the map of America is changing. The future will not be defined only by giant coastal cities. It will also be shaped by hundreds of smaller cities quietly growing across the country, attracting people, businesses, and opportunity in ways that were once unimaginable. And that is why small cities are booming again. Not because big cities disappeared, but because people finally have more choices than ever before. And they are choosing differently.